I'm on Bluetooth right now. Did you hear me okay?
I think everything sounds great, man. Sounds really
Good.
well. Yeah.
So maybe they've got it bad on their end. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. So we are now live. It's sounding great on my end. I can see you great. So now we're going to hit the record for the show and we're going to go live in 3, 2. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview best-selling authors all over the world. And today's guest is a guy that I met at a Tyler McBroom event. And it's pretty wild how most of my recent clients who become bestsellers, I met through Tyler McBroom. So shout out to Tyler for making all these connections and making all these books come to life. But Daniel Comparetto wrote a book called The Long Game, and he has an interesting story. There's one that I really want to get into when it comes to his car breaking down. So hopefully you stay with us and listen in on this conversation. But Daniel Comparetto, best-selling author, he puts together the nicest garages that you will see. So Daniel, thanks so much for being here, man.
Amazing, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I still remember, man, the first time I saw you on stage at the Tyler McBroom event. Just something different about you, right? The energy, and then the way you broke it down on how to effectively tell a story, and then the way you and the team were able to come alongside. Just, I don't know, it just clicked for me. And
Oh,
and I think probably the most amazing piece was I grasped it back in November, and then going through the whole process with you and the team, it was actually better than what I thought I understood in November. So kudos to you guys.
oh, that's awesome, dude. You know, whenever I
Yeah.
first talked to you, I remember you saying, man, I have some ideas for a book. And it wasn't too long after that we got on a call. But yeah, it seems like the clarity came to you pretty fast after that hurricane loaded event, right? I mean, we did the event and then we had to run away from the hotel.
Exactly. Yeah. No, fun times. I mean, that was just, again, we can't say enough good things about Tyler. But what an incredible show of just leadership and pivoting, acting on the fly. Yeah, I think that was one of Tyler's first big events that he threw. And then now all of a sudden he's got to deal with the key speaker couldn't show up because of a family emergency. I think Ben Newman. And then there was this hurricane that was right coming dead at us. So well done by him and the team as well.
I mean, that is true leadership. He was
Yeah.
calm the entire time. This
Oh
is his
yeah.
first big event. He has Tony Robbins, like audio guy in the background. I mean, sound effects while I'm up there speaking. It's phenomenal. And then we get a text message from the hotel. Hey, you need to vacate the property because there's a hurricane coming. I've never seen anything like that, and it was phenomenal. We still got the yacht trip in. I mean, it was awesome. And I got to meet
It was
people
good.
like you,
Yeah.
Sean Hall, and a couple other major players that we're great friends with. But let's get right into it, man. The book. All
Yeah.
right. So tell us a little bit about who you were before and maybe after the book. Did it change you did it give you a little bit more clarity about what you want to teach the world? Did you start to dive into maybe those defining moments, those forks in the road that maybe pointed you in the right direction? Tell us a little bit about the introspection that happened from the book creation.
Sure. So I think just set the bestseller status aside. Um, Set even just trying to provide somebody one copy. All that aside, I think it's tremendously helpful just for that a person to go through what you said, a lot of the retrospection, and almost processing. So I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, over a decade ago, and that time period kind of flew by. And there were several traumatic events, and so I think a lot of us vets kind of compartmentalize those experiences, just out of necessity. We got to keep rolling with the mission, and so a lot of those pieces I think didn't get fully processed. And then in general in life after the Marine Corps, I think I adopted the same mentality of almost ignoring or compartmentalizing very stressful or challenging situations in life. And so the whole book process of thinking, reflecting, revisiting, and then verbally articulating a lot of these lessons and stories really helped me get some closure. It helped me think through. I mean, boy, I was in tears at least a couple times, right, when we were chatting.
Yep.
So yeah, so that piece in itself was just awesome to go through on a personal level. Um, but the clarity, I think, again, got hammered home on why these lessons that I chose were so important to not only to me, but I think to other people in maybe similar situations. They're, not the only ones out there, but those, 10 to 15 will really resonate for others across the board. And man, since putting the finishing touches on the book, I probably touch one of those lessons at least once a week, if not several times, just myself, or I'll see others in the field within the company, um, come to grips with some of the challenges as well. And so it allows me to revisit, help, teach, learn, and coach others as well.
Yeah. There's a story that really sticks out, and I'm even getting chills even thinking about it. But you went through a really dark period, and I believe you reached out to your dad, and he said these words, and I don't know if I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
Friday is painful, but Sunday is coming, or Sunday is on its way, or something along those lines.
Right.
And yeah, can you just touch on that story and the message behind it?
Yeah, so it's super impactful. And so the phrase is, it's Friday night, but Sunday's coming. And so it's got a tie in, so it's a religious meaning or connotation, right? And so Jesus Christ was crucified on a Friday evening or Friday night. And so everybody that was following him, basically all their dreams and hopes were shattered. Somebody they loved died Friday night. And then Sunday morning, he rose from the dead, right? And so now, if you're at your darkest moment Friday night, but then it's, remember, Sunday's coming. It might not be the full 48 hours. Maybe it's 48 months, right? It's different for us, all of us in different situations, but it's this concept. And it was the exact phrase or concept that I needed to hear at that time. And I think when I called my dad, I was contemplating ending it all in my life, right? And so that's probably one of the worst conversations a father wants to have with his son. And I can't imagine having that conversation. And what do you tell your son? It's over the phone. It's not even in person. And so, like, that was the phrase that came to his mind, and he shared with me, and it really resonated. And so I think that it's an important concept that so many of us can use across each of our lives in different situations, even from something that's not even as high stakes itself as life itself, right? Just in business, right? Maybe a challenging situation or scenario in business. We lost our key salesperson, or our ops manager had to take maternity or paternity leave. The whole world's falling around you, but it's Friday night, Sunday's coming. Stay disciplined, stay resilient, and keep the consistency going. And so yeah, so it's just a tremendous phrase. Helped me out a lot. I think it can help others as well.
No doubt. There's a great philosophical quote. I don't know who it comes from. I think it's Epicurus or Epictetus or one of those classical philosophical icons. But it says, your trials and adversity will expose you to your strengths and your true self. And there was something along those lines. And it makes so much sense that in your darkest period, you do find out who you really are and what you're really capable of. So it's a blessing in a weird way. And I saw another meme recently, and it was like Jesus, like giggling to himself and it says like, this is Jesus watching you fall in love with that person, lose that job, or go through those trying times to awake the real person inside of you that you need to meet one day, right? So like it's all there for you. And did you notice anything about you when you went through those really dark times? Did it give you a little bit more resilience for when you did go after that entrepreneurial dream?
Oh, 100%. And I don't think I really realized it in the moment. And a lot of us, I don't think really do. Um, as we keep going through these iterations in life, I think we do have the opportunity to have the presence of mind to understand that this is a test situation, essentially, right? What you're saying, hey, this is a growth opportunity, growth period. But I certainly didn't have that, going through a lot of these situations early on. I just thought it was, the world was ending. But looking back on it, now you're like, wow, that's my baseline, and I can pull from that and build upon it as we go forward now. And so yes, it helps so much. Um, from a resiliency standpoint. And you were chatting just a little bit earlier, and it made me think. I think the latest person I heard this from, I think it was Andy Frisella, but it was these people that we respected and admire, for, call it, patience or absolute mental toughness or even physical strength. When you really think about it, how do you get to that level of the most patient person or resilient person? It's, you go through situations that you have to practice your patience, right? And so a lot of us, I didn't realize that, or I didn't appreciate it at the time. I'd get so pissed off that I'd have to exhibit patience in traffic or at the line at Starbucks. But when you change your mindset or perspective on, boy, this is an excellent opportunity to continue to grow this skill or this mindset that will further serve you and your team. That helped me a tremendous amount, and it's still helping me as we go forward. Because you'll look, it's easy to get caught up in the mindset or the frame of mind of like, oh, woe is me, of like, boy, I was grinding Monday, Tuesday was even worse, Wednesday and Thursday nothing went right, and it's like, I just can't catch a break. But if you actually took the other frame of mind or perspective of like, this is amazing at teaching me resilience, patience, discipline, and I know life isn't going to be this hard forever, so like, why not figure out how to use this to my advantage? No different than going to the gym and destroying back or legs, right? It hurts, but why you're doing it. So 90, 120, 180 days from now, your physique is physically much different, or your body's able to handle a much different load. And so I think it's a very similar concept with your mentality.
100%. I mean, it's compound interest, right? What's the eighth wonder of the world? Compound interest. And those who don't understand it will pay it, right? And those who do understand it will reap it. So it could be monetarily, related, but I believe, like you said, it could be that patience. You keep compounding that patience, you can walk into any meeting, any situation, and you are steady and you're calm and you're clear-minded. And individuals who are looking for a leader notice that, but it doesn't happen overnight. It does happen over a very long period. One of the chapters that I want to get into, and this is the story that I think is the most memorable, maybe second most memorable when it comes to that story with your dad, but
Right.
anything can be fixed. There's a way around anything. You can get through it. You can make it happen. The resilience chapter, when it comes to, I think you have a lawnmower, getting the car started, breaking down, taking the Uber on the wrong side of the road. Phenomenal story. Can you just kind of touch on that, please, for our listeners?
Oh, I'd love to. And probably the key point here is, early on in life, this situation would have destroyed or derailed me, right? I would never got to the finish line. But different situations, probably the past 15 years before this situation happened, all combined together to allow me to navigate the situation. Still was challenging, but I had just enough resiliency or presence of mind, to keep going. But the long story short was I was being interviewed for the chief of staff role to the CEO of a very high level company in the area. So just an awesome position, wonderful man, great company. I was super stoked. Like this was the next job for me. And I was far along in the process. This was going to be a casual lunch meeting. We were past a lot of the formalities. And so I guess the first uphill challenge was I was the guy that it was on tap to take the kids to school in the morning. My wife was tied up, and so that was a challenge. But no problem. Just meant we had to start the day a bit earlier, and so school's probably like an hour away from home in the opposite direction of breakfast. And so we're up at probably, I don't know, 5:15, 5:30. It's dark. And then on top of that, it was raining. And so that's just uncomfortable in itself, dark and raining. And I get out to the vehicle and it doesn't start. Right. And so
What kind of car was it? What kind of car?
You ready? So it's 2008 Honda Civic.
All right. So first off, Honda Civic, super reliable, not too old of a car. It should work, right?
It should have. Yep. And of all days, right? So cold, dark, raining, car didn't start on the biggest morning of my life to that point. And it's too early to wake the neighbors. So that's not an option. So I'm just sitting there in a car, visibly frustrated. Kids are staring at me like, oh boy, what's going on? And I'm just thinking, I was reminded of Jocko Willing. I love the man, and he is the epitome of two concepts. Discipline, I think, is number one, and then two is resiliency. And so a concept of his when he was going up through the SEAL teams, and something he tried to hammer home, was this concept of good. Nothing's bad or insurmountable. It's, if you didn't get funding for this new cool training op that was going to prep us for the pump to Afghanistan, good. How can we be more resourceful and resilient and figure out how to get still the same training? And so I was trying to think through my mind, like, how in the world is this situation good? But just thinking through that gave me like that half second to think, what are my resources? What can I do? And then I realized I had a riding lawnmower in the garage, and it had a battery. I was like, well, the car's got a battery, riding lawnmower's got a battery. There's a way we can hook it up with the jumper cables. So I got it out, positioned it, and it took a little bit longer than a normal car, but it juiced right up, and we were on our way. So kids got dropped off, right? So mission number one was accomplished. And then probably not even 10 minutes later, I just got onto the highway. So, 70, 75 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, dashboard shut off. I got no power. Car basically died on me. And so I was able to coast over to the median safely. But the car is dead. I mean, it's as good as the weight, pushing it, right? And so again, I'm sitting here like, you could not make this story up. Time is really becoming an issue now. Probably 75 minutes before we have to meet, and it's an hour drive north.
You already dropped off the kids?
No, yeah, so kids are dropped. It's just me. I gotta get to the breakfast. And so again, I'm sitting there thinking like, this is unbelievable. And then thank God for some technological advances, right? We got Uber and Lyft. And I was like, well, damn, let's just call up the Uber. And so got one very quickly. And as I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the where the Uber driver is and where it's marking my pickup location. And I can see that it's literally 40, 50 yards away from my car. And it just so happens that there's a massive retaining wall, basically, that separates the highway noise from the home development on the other side. And so Uber thinks I'm sitting in that home development 40 yards to the right. over this 10 to 12 foot wall. So I realized if he's over there, it's going to take him an additional 10 to 15 to find me. So I realized I got to call the guy. And so I call him, and I'm literally giving him grid coordinates, driving directions, just like if we were calling in an airstrike back in Afghanistan. So he found me, no problem, picked me up, and I had 3 minutes to spare before breakfast, before I would have been late. So went great. And then as we were parting ways after the breakfast, the CEO goes, I realized you came in an Uber. Is everything okay? And so I said, funny you ask. You know, I got a cool story to share with you. So we chatted for another 20 minutes, and he's like, you know what? That's all I need to hear, man. You're the guy. Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, if you would have told me, hey, this is what's going to happen to you next week or tomorrow, I would have said, God, I don't think that's worth it. Right. But in the moment, or even years earlier, I wouldn't have been able to handle that. But in the moment, it was just practicing presence of mind, resiliency, and then I guess understanding, you know, how bad do you want something, and then figuring out ways creatively to just go after and get it.
Beautiful. I
And
love
right,
that
that
story.
and that's yeah, that's the new baseline now, right? So that's not the last time I'm going to be tested on resiliency. And so now, you know, that's my baseline, and just work your way up from there.
Yeah, it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And Tony Robbins has that amazing quote. It's has nothing to do with the amount of resources. It has to do with the amount of resourcefulness. And I truly believe that, man. You give somebody who's a MacGyver, they're going to be able to figure it out when it comes to entrepreneurship or their dreams. All right, doesn't matter what I have. Let me look at what I have, and I'll make it work somehow, some way. And those are the individuals, whenever they acquire more resources, they don't lose that skill set. It just adds to them. So really powerful story. But the book, guys, is called The Long Game. It's available on Amazon. Best-selling book as of right now. You'll be able to see the tag on it. Very incredible stories, incredible lessons that are applied to it. And it's wild how you have all these teachable lessons, but what you do is you also help people get their garage space beautiful, right? So how does the book tie into your business? Tell us a little bit about the business itself.
Sure. So just the 30-second overview of the company. We come in and completely remodel garage interiors. So anything from the pretty epoxy flooring to hex glow lighting, and then cabinets and wall storage. But there's a lot of lessons in the book where we can use and translate over into anything from the construction project timeline. We've got certain projects where everything goes wrong that you could imagine. And so it's just, again, calling back on certain situations in the book where it's like, oh, this is a great resiliency test. Or this is a great time to practice discipline and execution. And I think, you know, the book certainly does add some credibility, right? Most people, when they think of the construction industry or the guy that's going to upgrade your garage, you know, they have a certain stereotype in mind. But the brand and experience that our company is built around is more of a luxury model. And so it really kind of helps cement that in people's minds when they find out or they hear that, hey, the owner of the company or the guy coming to do some of the installs is actually a best-selling author, and he's got some really cool lessons that he's learned, and he would love to help other people, you know, by sharing his experiences as well.
You were the first person to bring up Carol Dweck. I had no idea who that was. And in chapter
Oh, wow.
15, yeah, I remember you saying that. I'm like, how do I not know this person? But chapter
Sure.
15 is from A to B to infinity. Can you give us a quick little rundown on what that's all about?
Yeah. Oh, man, this is, again, it's hard to pick just one thing that changed my life. But I think Carol Dweck's concept of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset was super fundamental for me, and it was one of the earlier mental concepts or frameworks that I grasped. So I grew up in a very fixed mindset environment, and I adopted it very quickly. So fixed mindset means you got what you were born with, you got your environment. There's nothing really you can do. You're not in control of anything, right? If you're good at math, great. If you're not, well, you're screwed whenever it comes to do with math and numbers and whatever. And so that's how I approached life, and it really didn't serve me one bit, right? I didn't enjoy that part of my life. And then so once I got introduced to Carol's concept here, growth mindset is you can grow really into anything that you want mentally. And then if you want to be good at math, you 100% can be. It just might take you more time and effort. And so once I saw that, it was like, God, the world is my oyster.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it just might take more effort, time, and discipline, but it's possible. And so that was super liberating for me. It just gave me the freedom to start dreaming and trying to figure out what was possible in my life. And so, for me, it was kind of just, hey, go to school, keep your grades up. You're going to get this technical or engineering degree, and you're going to work at the same company for 40 to 50 years, just like, your family did. And that was your background. That's going to be your future. And so now, having been introduced to the growth mindset, because I just didn't naturally fit that path, and I was always fighting it in my life, whether I realized it or not. Now it allowed me to think, wow, maybe we can start a company. Maybe it can be very successful, and maybe it can actually be a massive company and impact people on the Gulf Coast of Florida, right? And so you asked that 10 years ago, I would say that's the most ridiculous thing I would ever be doing in my life, right? But it's changing that mindset just opens up an incredible richness to your life. And this is not just for me, this is for everybody. I think if more people adopted that growth mindset to pursue interests, passions, and dreams, a lot more people would be set on fire. They'd have a lot more passion for life. And if they listened to that, they would have a greater sense of direction. I don't think they would feel as aimless or lost as so many people do nowadays.
Entrepreneurship in general, I think, is a personal development journey disguised as a business adventure, right? It's more about finding out what you're capable of rather than the business that you're building. Am I right? Like,
Right.
you notice more about yourself, about other people, about, the mind games that are happening day in and day out, and the abundance mindset that you touched on a bit ago, as compared to the scarcity mindset. You said something earlier on in this podcast that you're constantly tested. Well, years ago, if my bank account went below a certain number, I would freak out. I couldn't sleep at night. I would start to get desperate, right? And I would start to do things in a way that would be very pushy and mean to even my team. Like, hey, we got to go. We got to go. And now I think we're just going to create more. We'll get more leads. It's going to work out. We have belief. We didn't get this far just to get this far. And it's like, I had to be tested many, 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 many times to develop that abundance mindset. So that abundance mindset leads to absolute growth, because you are telling yourself that you're going to make it even in the darkest times. And for some reason, it's like you work your best in that state of mind. You are able to sell easier when you're in the abundance mindset as compared to the desperate mindset. And it's wild how, as you develop personally, your bank account grows also, right? Jim Rohn, well, you're a Jim Rohn fan. He says that if you have a lucky jump and you hit the lottery, you're only going to go back down to the level of personal development that you're at. And it makes so much sense. Imagine you hitting a ton of money with a big sale or whatever. If you're not personally developed to be able to hold it, to grow it, to manage it, my God, it's going to go away. And that's why it is a personal development journey. And that's what you're talking about, right?
100%. And coming at it from that abundance mindset allows you to focus on being of service to others and adding value to their life, right? And I battled the same demons, man, from the scarcity mindset early on. It's just it's a low energy feeling. You're not going to attract the right people. And it's not sustainable. Having that abundance mindset is much more freeing. And it really is the ticket, even though some of us might not see it in the short term or feel it, right? That's one of I think that's one of the things you just have to trust and stay consistent and disciplined. And you'll see that over time. But no, I struggled with that so badly. Always thinking every single competitor was an enemy, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
now, like they are maybe not teammates, but they're friends. We're very friendly together, and I think it's more of a 1 + 1 can equal 5, or 1 + 1 can equal 10 type concept as well. That helped me a lot, instead of thinking, oh, there's only one guy that's going to win this sale. It better be us. It's like, I don't know how, but maybe we lose that sale, but the experience was so good, they referred us to 3 other people, right? The possibilities limitless, but it's like life is so much more rich and full having the abundance mindset.
You start to see allies more than enemies. And it's wild how you change your lens, right? Like you said, if you're in the scarcity mindset, you're thinking there's only so much money in the world and I need to get it all, right? My competitors can't get it. I need to get it. And then when you shift and start to say, wow, these are my allies over here. Maybe they're not your best buddies and you go out and hang with them all the time, but you look at it in a way that you're not my competitor. You're not my enemy. I hope you win. And, that energy that you put out there somehow starts to come back to you and you win a little easier. Maybe individuals see you as a true ally, whether they're in your field or not. They notice your energy, your state of mind. You're not bashing your competitors. You're actually building them up. And that energy, whether people realize it or not, people want to be drawn to those type of people. And I guarantee you're noticing that even in a sales meeting, right? They see the difference in you talking about the mindset, putting out best-selling books as compared to your competitors who most likely, right? They may come in, they're not personally developed to understand karma or the ability to focus on growth and abundance, and individuals see it from afar. Is that right? Have you noticed that?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And as you practice this more and more in life, you're able to spot it more and more. But yeah, that's completely spot on. I was just thinking about a story with a competitor recently, but it slipped my mind. When it comes back, I'll let you know.
Well, it does tie in with your book, because I think a lot of people are looking for the short-term return on investment, right? I want to do something. I want to get paid today. And your book is called The Long Game. Once I realized that the secret to business is to just outlast the competitors, right? To stay at it for as long as you possibly can. Once I realized that this is not a one-year thing, this is a lifelong mission. And if you're around posting, reading, selling, building, going to mastermind events, going to certain events longer than most people around you, individuals see you as the expert. And it's almost like you got to fall in love with the journey itself. And that's whenever individuals start to actually come your way. But if you don't love what you're doing, you are going to play that short game, right? You're going to try to do something. So you think about your bank account, which means you get out of that service mindset that you touched on a bit ago. And you're starting to think of the selfish mindset. What's in it for me right now? And if you join a mastermind, you're thinking about, how do I spend money and get my return on investment today, right in my bank account? And it changes everything. But this is the long game, right? And I love the fact that you could see who's real, who's not. Give it 5 years, give it 10 years, give it 15 years. Grant Cardone had this amazing speech at one of 10X Growth Con 2, I think it was. He said, it took me 20 years to get where I'm at, 20, 25 years. And it's going to take you guys the same amount of time, maybe longer, are you guys willing to do it for 20 to 25 years? And it really hits home. This is not a overnight success for anybody. So the long game, if you adopt that mentality, that's the competitive advantage. What can you say about that?
Oh, there's so much. Probably the first thing that comes to mind is, for me, it was a mentality switch of goal accomplishment. So it was more of the short game focus of, I just wanted to get to X and then I'll be happy or satisfied, or like that'll be the finish line, that, whatever that is, right, for people. But and it's been scientifically proven recently that the dopamine hit that we all get is a lot less, and it lasts shorter whenever we accomplish whatever X was. So if we're going after that gold medal, we're actually receiving more of that dopamine throughout that journey, and it's lasting longer if we're staying at it than when we receive on the podium.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
It still feels good, like, don't get me wrong, but it's not as high as what we can imagine we thought it would be, and it's gone incredibly quick, 24, 48 hours. And that's been proven over and over again. And so, like, once I started to realize that, it just shifts your whole mentality of like, wow, this is fall in love with the journey of the process, more of a longer game focus, right? Whatever it is, like, I just need to get to 7 figures in sales, or let me be in business for 3 years, you name it. It's like, that is not the way to approach it. And then the other piece is, you almost need to play a game with yourself that ties into the long game. So let's say, for business, I want to get to the 8-figure in sales mark, right? So we got to hit 10 million. When you're at like 8.5, and you're like, man, it's going to be next year or the year after, we'll be at the 10-year mark. You need to blow that ceiling out, so that now you don't hit the 10 and lose your momentum, and you get there and it's like, God, this wasn't special. You're going to hit the 10. Your goal needs to be 100 now, or something like that, right? You need to keep moving the goalposts for yourself. That'll continue to help feed that long game process, the motivation, the dopamine hits that we all get. And that other piece about competitors I was thinking about, again, early on in life, all I saw competition was a way for me to look bad. It was a way that if I went out on the field and I messed up or I lost, I was embarrassed, or somebody looked better than me. But the way to look at it is, you compete with somebody else one-on-one, or sports and business. Look at it as a way to achieve something you didn't even think was possible, right? So when two great athletes or businesses compete together, it just channels a different part of the universe, the energy, where you achieve new levels of accomplishment, or new ideas are formed. And so it's amazing when I'm looking at competitors in the garage upgrade space, we're literally going after each other, trying to outdo each other. And what it does is it makes our company, their company better. The customer gets just a mind-blowing experience and product. And it's like, that is where a lot of us should be turning and focusing on, instead of I don't want to try that hard to beat that competitor, or try that hard to do that result. Why can't we all just like set the bar here, and like, that's where we're gonna, go coast for the rest of our life? It's like, no, that the 1 + 1 = 10 mentality is a lot more special from a personal standpoint, building a team standpoint, and then also the whole customer interaction piece as well.
I love it. Yeah. And what you said before, it made me think of a quote. I think it was I mean, you're a big fan of Can't Hurt Me. I think it was David Goggins. You talk about his
Yeah.
book quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's basically about finding your hill. And, those individuals like you're talking about, if they get that gold medal, they don't have any more hill in sight. Right.
Right.
And the human brain needs a hill, right? Because there's that constant pursuit of greatness or something else. And without a hill to pursue, you start to slide down, right? You'll start to decrease. And whether it has to do with the competitive mindset, like where you can constantly refine yourself, or just loving the journey of restoring the car or building the business, right? The dopamine is hitting constantly because you're growing. And it does take a little bit of effort and maybe pain at first or during it, but it's constantly rewarding you into a better version of yourself, a better business, more opportunity, a more finished product. And the hill, as long as you have another hill to pursue, I think it keeps you young, it keeps you fresh, it keeps you wanting to stay the course, because humans are not built to coast. It's the way I look at it. So great points you made up there. So you made there. Anyways, the book is called The Long Game, guys. Pick it up on Amazon. How to Pursue Excellence, Play to Win in Business, and Achieve Your Life's Dreams. The last question I ask everybody is, outside of this book, name another book that changed your life that you could recommend to the readers.
You mentioned it. I had
Can't
never
hurt me.
read. Yeah, I had never read a book cover to cover, I think, since is either 8th or 9th grade. Right. So from that time period up until I think I was 30. So over a decade, never read a book cover to cover. I'd read a chapter, a paragraph. And I mean, that's a story in of itself. You just miss out on so much in life if you're not reading.
Bingo.
But that was the one book I couldn't put it down. I mean, David's story is just unbelievable. And that was the catalyst to really jumpstart the pivot in my life. That's when I started reading Carol Dweck's book, The Fixed Mindset versus the Growth Mindset. Discovered Andy Frisella's 75 Hard program, which I can't even say enough about. And then really, again, that one book led me to start reading books, right? Now I'm exposed to Ed Milet's books, and it's just incredible. Yeah, and I think David's second book, I can't remember the title, but it just came out with it, is just as special. It's got a different feel, but it's just so nuanced and powerful in its own way that man has a gift, and he was put on this earth for a reason.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this second book, he's doing the audio version himself. In the first book, he didn't. So you need to have his voice behind it. And I got to check that new one out.
Yes.
But great recommendation. The book, guys, is called The Long Game. Pick it up today by Daniel Comparetto. Thank you so much for being here. The best way to get a hold of you, is it via Instagram, a TikTok, Facebook? What's the easiest way?
LinkedIn, actually, is probably the best way. Just shoot a quick message. Always happy to continue the conversation or help in any way possible.
Cool. Check them out on LinkedIn. It is on Instagram at him. It's tough to find you, right? It's at Hamilton and Carter. Is that correct?
It is. Yep. So I was one of the guys that never got on Facebook or Instagram personally. So, but yes, the company name is on IG. Check it out too. It's got awesome after photos. A lot of our work is on there. So the team does great.
There's not a man on this planet that doesn't want a cool garage. So guys, if you're looking for the best looking garage, get in touch with Daniel. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, guys, a book can change your life. I mean, for me, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. For him, it was Can't Hurt Me. And for you, it might be The Long Game. So pick it up today. And remember, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life.